Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Rachel and this is Vlogmas. Today we are going to be celebrating the feast day of St. Nicholas, which is actually on December 6th. Going to be doing it a day early, get this video up, so in case you guys want to do any of the crafts and things I have planned at the end of this video with your kiddos, you have time to gather supplies and get yourself ready. First, I want to put a little disclaimer out there. I'm not a theologian. I'm not always right. I make mistakes. I'm human. If you have a question about anything or you disagree with something I said, always do your own research. St. Nick's feast day, like I said, is on December 6th, and that's the day that he died. Generally, we celebrate saints' feast days on the day that they passed away or a different day appointed by the church. In some cases, we don't know when the exact day was that they passed. And when I was little, I thought a feast day meant like you feasted, like you got to eat, but it's actually more like a celebration and a way of honoring the saints who have passed on. Lots of different countries celebrate the feast day in different ways, but usually they revolve around the same kind of idea of sharing gifts. St. Nick is remembered as a charitable person, humble, kind, loving, giving, compassionate. He was doing a lot of this philanthropic work anonymously as well, and I think that speaks a lot to his character. He sounds like a pretty great guy, right? Well, that's how come he's a saint with a capital S. And we should strive to model ourselves after the saints. That's why they're there. That's why the Catholic Church puts them there, to honor them, but also to give us somebody to model ourselves after. So instead of the celebrities that a lot of times we are inspired to kind of idolize or make us our role models, these are the kind of people that we should be looking to, even though Santa Claus is kind of a celebrity of sorts. Patron saints. Santa Claus is the patron saint of children, and that's because there is a legend of him saving 3 children from barrels of brine that they were going to meet like a pretty grisly demise, and he saved them from that. He is also the patron saint to coopers, to brewers, to unmarried people, and to fishermen, just to name a few. In Catholicism, a patron saint is kind of like a heavenly advocate for a specific group of people, like nurses, doctors, lawyers, or a place or a type of group of people. It gives them someone to look to for guidance. Even though it's kind of a Catholic thing, I do think that other branches of Christianity recognize as a saint. St. Nicholas didn't leave behind any physical theological writings, but he is quoted as saying, "The dignity and this office demand different usage in order that one should live no longer for oneself but for others." Let's talk about his early beginnings. St. Nick was born to parents who were deeply religious, devout people of faith, and they were also very, very wealthy. They had so much trouble conceiving a child until they were finally blessed with St. Nicholas. So to them, he was already this huge blessing from the very beginning. Given Nick's parents' station in life, he didn't want for anything. He had everything he wanted, including education, secular and religious. Best of the best for Nick. So Nick was named after his father's brother, Nicholas, who was the Bishop of Patara, and Uncle Nick encouraged his nephew's education, especially in the religious aspects. And at a very early age, his uncle ordained him into the church. Right after he was ordained a priest, St. Nicholas' parents passed away, and he inherited all of their money and lands. This is about the time that he went out and squandered it on gambling and drinking and, wait a minute, maybe that was me, just kidding. Anyway, he donated all of his money, literally all of it. And when I say literally, I mean like all of it, to the point that he didn't even have enough food for himself and did not have proper clothing at times. Instead, he lived a very monastic, prayerful life, and he had traveled to the Holy Lands and done a bunch of other things until he returned from the Holy Lands and the Archbishop of Myra had passed away. And when he passed away, the elders of the church had decided to elect St. Nicholas as the Bishop of Myra. So that's how he came into that position. Fast forward, right after that, there became a horrible time of persecution for Christians, and also a lot of heretics were running around, one of which being Arius, who was important to the story. He was one of the bigger heretics, to the point of even creating a spin-off Christianity religion named after himself, which is Arianism. So tell me you're not full of yourself if you're naming a religion after yourself. So Constantine, the ruler at that time, decided he was going to create this council, this ecumenical council of all these wise and highly pious bishops. They were all going to meet and discuss what to do. I think the idea was to have everything in writing for a codification of purification and to make sure that nothing was taken out of context in the Bible and have a clear standpoint on how Christianity was going to be practiced. That way there wouldn't be any room for hearsay. Arius was also at these meetings, and no matter what the council did to try to dissuade him from his false teachings, he continued on anyway and would not be spoken to rationally. He was just dead set on his own specific beliefs, and imagine how maddening that would have had to have been to those bishops there, to the point that Nicholas did something that like shocked everyone. This is my favorite part. Dude, he had enough. And I am going to be ad-libbing this because this is it's a whole story. It's a whole thing. And in order to consolidate this and make it less boring, I'm just going to break it down like ad-lib style. I should say Mad Lib style. Saint Nick got so frustrated that he did something completely unexpected. It like shocked the entire council. This was so crazy, and you'll find out why so crazy in just a minute, but everyone was stunned. Nick, he got up, and he just decks Arius right in the face. Pow! But the best part about it is if you go online and research it and you see all of the memes and the paintings, I mean, some of them are pretty good. So anyway, of course, everyone is like, okay, what the hell is going on? And you might be thinking, so you hit the dude, so what? Well, back then it was against the law to strike anyone in the presence of Constantine. And so the punishment for this was, they would just chop off the offending hand. So whatever hand you, smacked or decked somebody with, they just cut it off. And so I think so Saint Nick knows this, and he's so protective of his faith and his religion, that he was willing to risk getting his hand chopped off and losing everything just to stop this heretic from spewing his nonsense. So, I imagine Arius like picking himself up, dusting himself off. He's kind of embarrassed, but he's a total Karen. So he's like, I want to speak to the manager. Instead, he looks at Constantine, who is the manager, and says, you gonna let him do this to me? You're gonna let him get away with this? It's against the law. So Constantine, I'm sure everyone was like, yeah, but they can't, they have to follow the laws. So Constantine's like, well, shit, yeah. So the bishop stripped Saint Nick of all of his priestly vestments, and they threw him in jail. He lost everything, and now he's in prison. But later that night, the Holy Mother Mary and Jesus appear to him, restore his holy vestments to him, and tell him this is not how it's going down. And they also appear to several of the bishops through dreams and kind of tell them his anger was a righteous anger, and he's not being treated fairly. He stood up for me, for God, for our religion and our faith, and this is not how it's going down. So he ended up being restored back into power, into his bishop's position, gave his vestments back, and he continued on with the meeting. And after this, he lived out the rest of his life as a bishop until he died in 343. So I want to talk about relics. Relics are a significant article from a saint, a specific saint. They can either be like actually a physical part of their body, like a tooth or a bone, or they can be a clothing, a vestment, hair, anything that belonged to that person, like their crozier, their staff, anything like that is a relic. Saint Nick's primary relics are located in a crypt at the Basilica of San Nicola in Italy, where they have been since 1087. So relics are kind of like a tangible memorial for us. It's basically to honor that saint's memory and respect their body, respect their belongings, and we give thanks to God for giving them to us because they provide us with such an excellent witness of what we should strive to be like in our daily lives. Fun fact, usually Catholic churches have a relic from the saint they are named after in their church. So like St. Nick's has them, St. Bernard's has them, St. Lucia would have that. Depending on what the church's name is, there is usually a relic from that saint. So this is just the tip of the iceberg on the story of St. Nick. I hope I didn't bore you too much with my blathering, but if you are interested and you want to know more information, I will link some really good pages to check out in the description box so you can continue reading about St. Nick. But next I want to talk about some kind of fun things that we can do with our kiddos to kind of educate them and help them honor the saints. Number 1, celebrate the spirit of giving. You can either do this with money, time, or of yourself. You could donate money to a charity, teach your kids, like have them maybe do angel tree or something, and they can spend some of their money, their allowance on that. Or you could, if they're older, I would let them work in a soup kitchen. I'd make sure they're older because sometimes those places can get a little hairy. My kids worked in them in high school. Sometimes it's a little dicey, but let them work in a soup kitchen. I think it's a great way for them to be a service to the community and also kind of see things that go on, make them more appreciative maybe of what they do have. 2, celebrate the custom of shoes. Let your child put their little shoes by your door, or if you're lucky enough to have a fireplace, let them put them beside the fireplace on the evening of December 5th. That way on the feast day, on the 6th, when they wake up, there will be a little prize there for them. Traditionally, shoes were filled with either like golden chocolate coins or a fruit, but you could do any kind of little trinket or candies that you want. If they want, they can even leave carrots for St. Nicholas's horse, which has now evolved into why we do the carrots for the reindeer. 3, cookies. What's a good St. Nick tradition without cookies, am I right? So traditionally it is like spice cookies, but gingerbread works. It's similar, or you could do any kind of cookie you want. If you're interested in making the gingerbread cookies, I will link a very good recipe for soft gingerbread cookies in the description box. 4, have your children put on a St. Nicholas play for you. It is very entertaining to watch children do these kinds of things. And I think they really enjoy performing for their adults, especially when they get a lot of praise for it. If you're interested in doing the play, I'll list a website below that has different scripts for different age levels and different amounts of people. 5, make a St. Nick miter headband. Kids love crafting, and this is a good chance for them to get out the glue sticks. I will link a project below if you are interested in doing that. 6, share a quick video with your kids about St. Nick or read them a book. If you're interested in a good little short video for them to watch about the story of St. Nicholas, I will link one below. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace be with you.